2.2.3 Risk and Issue Management Null Learning Objectives. This section examines two of the most misunderstood of all the project management processes, risk management and issue management. Understanding risk management means that the project can exploit the existing opportunities to further optimize the project schedule, budget and scope. Issues are events where, in effect, the project is caught by surprise and needs to respond. Issues may not be avoidable, but what is important is that the process applied to deal with such eventualities creates valuable lessons learned. By the time you have studied this section, you will have completed the following: Learning Outcome Assessment Criteria 7. Understand project risk and issue management in the context of a project. 7.1 Define the term risk. 7.2 Explain the purpose of risk management. 7.3 Outline the stages of a typical risk management process, including identification, analysis, response and closure. 7.4 Describe the use of risk registers. 7.5 Define the term issue. 7.6 Outline the purpose of issue management. 7.7 Differentiate between an issue and a risk. 7.8 State the stages of an issue resolution null process. The term risk is the potential of a situation or event to impact on the achievement of specific objectives. It is the level of uncertainty that exists. This is not a negative thing as long as the project is aware that uncertainty exists and can proactively consider the best way to respond to that uncertainty. Null the purpose of risk management. Risk management is a process that allows individual risk events and overall risk to be understood and managed proactively, optimizing success by minimizing threats and maximizing opportunities. All projects are inherently risky because they are unique, constrained, based on assumptions, performed by people and subject to external influences. Risks can affect the achievement of objectives either positively or negatively. Risk includes both opportunities and threats, and both should be managed through the risk management process. Risk management must be closely aligned to schedule management. Cost, time and resource estimates should always take risks into account. The project manager is accountable for ensuring that risk management takes place. Depending on the size and complexity of the project, a specialist risk manager may be appointed to oversee and facilitate the risk management process. A typical risk management process. It is important to note that the risk management process discussed here is not applied to the management of general health and safety risks, which are usually excluded from project risk management. Management of these risks is traditionally handled separately through the formation of a safety plan for the project, often with the support of the health and safety function within the organization. The process of project risk management will focus on individual project risks that, should they occur, will affect the project's objectives. The project manager will also seek to understand the overall risk exposure of the project, so that this can be reported to the project sponsor and other stakeholders. A typical risk management process is illustrated in Figure 2.2.3.1. Figure 2.2.3.1 Risk Management Process and Management Products. The steps are as follows. Initiate. The main purpose of this step is to ensure that there is a common understanding of the project to which the risk management process is to be applied. It is important that risk management is not seen by the project team as a burdensome process that will ensure every box is ticked. Instead, this step will make sure that the level of process to be used fits the specific requirements of the project. A key output from the initiation step is the risk management plan, which details how risk will be managed throughout the life cycle. The risk management plan will be an important reference for all stakeholders who require an insight into the risk organization and control structure, and the specific responsibilities for risk management. A number of appendices will also be included, such as templates and performas of the documents necessary to effectively carry out the process. Part of the overall project management plan, the risk management plan makes it quite clear how risk is going to be tackled for the project. In many organizations it may be held as a template in a standard project methodology, although the risk management plan will always be specific to a particular project. Identification. The objective of risk identification is to draw out all known risks to project objectives. Risk identification is a creative, divergent process that benefits from the input of a wide range of people using a method that does not restrict or bias their thinking. Working with stakeholders and the team to discuss risk is one area that requires a facilitative approach and a means of providing neutral challenges to address any bias. Workshops are often used for this purpose, although alternative approaches that enable individuals to contribute without any chance of group bias can be more useful. To make sense of differing perceptions, it is important to describe risk events clearly, separating causes facts now or stable planning assumptions from risk event situations that may occur and effects that have an impact on one or more of the project-specific skills already defined. Once risks are identified, they are documented in the risk register. It is also vital that the correct risk owner is defined for each risk event at this stage in the risk management process. Risk owners are individuals or groups who are best placed to assess and manage specific risk. Working with the risk owner, the project manager ensures that risks are clearly described in the risk register before moving on to the risk analysis step of the risk management process. Analysis. The relative severity of identified risks is assessed using qualitative techniques to gain understanding of their individual significance and/or their combined impact on objectives. They can then be prioritized for further attention. Risk owners will work with the project team to carry out basic qualitative analysis, as a minimum, to identify and prioritize risk events based on an assessment of the probability, likelihood of occurrence, size of impact on schedule, cost, benefits and potentially other objectives. Response. The risk owner uses information collected during risk identification and risk analysis to advise the project manager whether it makes sense to proactively invest previously and plan time and money to bring the exposure to risk within acceptable levels. The decision on when to take the risk or invest in increasing certainty is influenced by the appetite for risk of the sponsor and ultimately the investing organization. If there is a justification for investing time and money proactively to increase certainty, the project manager makes provision to implement the plan responses time, resource, cost and updates the integrated project plan deployment baseline accordingly. Closure. The final part of the management process is to ensure that all risks are closed when they have occurred, they have been successfully mitigated or accepted, or there is no longer a possibility of them occurring. At this stage it is useful to document information about the risk being closed, for example, any updated risk information, closure rationale and lessons learned. There are valuable benefits in fully understanding a risk, the approach to analysis, how it was mitigated, or what conditions have been met when closing a risk, for future reference. At project closure, if there are any open risks remaining, the project manager must ensure that these are communicated to those involved in the adoption phase. The use of risk registers. A risk register is a document listing identified risk events and their corresponding plan responses. The term risk log is also used to describe such a document. It provides a standard format in which to record risk information. As a minimum, for each risk this information is likely to include the description, causes, probability, impact, mitigation actions, fallbacks and status, and the names of individuals with responsibility for the risk's management. Depending on the risk management techniques selected, other data is also likely to be maintained, as appropriate. Although a risk register can be maintained manually, most projects are likely to use spreadsheet software for this purpose. Such spreadsheets may be designed for a standalone PC or for concurrent use by users linked through a network. The term issue. An issue is a problem that is now breaching, or is about to breach, delegated tolerances for work on a project or program. These tolerances represent the degree of variability that the project sponsor is willing to accept with regard to the project's performance in reaching its time, cost and quality objectives. Issues require support from the sponsor to agree a resolution. Issues are differentiated from problems that may be escalated from the team to the project manager and dealt with on a day-to-day basis. It is possible that these problems could in fact be issues and require onward escalation to the sponsor, but such an eventuality should be considered rare. The purpose of issue management. The purpose of issue management is to provide a common process that can be used to identify and document those issues that have occurred and apply an appropriate resolution plan. Issue management plays an important role in maintaining project stability and efficiency throughout the deployment of the project. At the end of the project, the information documented from the issue register will be used to provide valuable lessons learned when planning future projects. Differentiating between an issue and risk, there is often a tendency to mix up the identification, analysis and management of risks with issues. They are related but are not the same thing. Issues may develop when particular risks or groups of risks actually occur, and the mitigation actions that have been put in place to deal with these risks are insufficient to such a degree that it requires escalation to the next level of management for resolution. If risks occur and the contingencies that have been reserved are consumed to the expected degree, then that is not an issue. Issues that are happening may also be causes of new risks, or result in the assessment of risk likelihood and/or size of impact to change. It is understandable that a project manager might prioritize the management of issues problems now over the management of risks potential problems or opportunities, but a project where this is continually the case would suggest an underlying concern with project plans and controls. The stages of an issue resolution process. The process used to resolve issues ensures the following. Since when an issue is identified, it is logged in an issue register log and analysis is performed quickly to understand the nature of the issue, its causes, and its impacts, if it is not resolved. The prioritization of issues is based on the impact on success criteria and benefits for the work, taking into account the relative priorities of scope, quality, time, cost and benefits in the business case. Since issues are escalated to the sponsor, who may, in turn, escalate them to the governance board for resolution. Since actions are assigned to the person or group who is best placed to address the issue and identify and implement a resolution in a timely manner. Since issues that result in changes to scope or any other part of the baseline plan are progressed through change control. As part of integrated planning, the limits of delegated authority are established, and formal change control is required when these tolerances are breached. Since the management of issues is tracked from identification through to resolution, including any change control and replanning of the deployment baseline and project management plan. Think about a project you have researched or may be familiar with and note down some of the steps used to manage risk. Check these steps against the process defined in this section. Now read about the world of project management. One of the benefits of risk management is that it actually facilitates greater risk-taking. Calculated risk-taking has always been the basis for success. This has to be, of course, within the bounds of applying formal risk management techniques, with appropriate mitigation and fallback plans. Another aspect of risk-taking is risk appetite. How much risk investors are willing to tolerate in achieving their objectives. Pamela Stacey explains a little more of her experiences at HS2, the planned high-speed rail route in the UK. What's your appetite for risk? How often does your project team, or its sponsors, actively discuss risk appetite? Understanding what risks can and can't be taken, and for what rewards, ought to be a much bigger part of project planning, says Pamela Stacey, Head of Program and Corporate Assurance for HS2. It's a guiding principle. At HS2, safety is our number one concern. And people might say that makes our risk appetite too low. But it needs to be that way, to avoid other priorities displacing it at any point. The other misconception she has come across is confusion between risks and issues. The difference is things in the future versus things now, she explains. People on a project often prefer to address what they can see happening. It feels tangible, and a solution can be found. But they forget that an issue cropping up is just a risk that has crystallized. Her prescription? Look at what the immediate issues tell you about how risks are developing and might surface in the future. If you don't have that analysis, you'll struggle to update your risk profile thoroughly. Issues tell null. If you would like to read more about this example or other real-world project examples, copies of APM's project journal can be downloaded from the Members Resources area of the APM website, org project. Stories. Stacy, who also sits on the committee of APM's Assurance Specific Interest Group, adds, if you're focused on the next milestone or stage gate, you might stop looking forward at risks that could emerge later, or the overall project outcomes. So, look beyond a post-project lessons learned process and adapt dynamically to the way risk evolves. Originally published in Project Autumn 2019. Null.